Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
I have Dr. Bob's Christmas present all picked out.
Oh, that's very exciting. I just want to, before we really get yelling at each other, I just want to wish everyone a happy holiday out there.
That's right. That's coming up on the 25th. Is coming up on Tuesday this year.
Yes. Usually it's on the 25th. Yes, indeed.
You were right last week about pulling out of Syria, Dr. Heineman.
Well, thank you, Brian, for confirming my one of my few accurate assessments there. But I think it does prove the point I was trying to make, and that is, and you can't blame Trump a bit. Trump looks at this situation and he's saying to himself, what a mess the Obama people have gotten us into here. This is an endless struggle. There's not going to be any resolution to this in the next 50 years. Why commit American troops here? And so he did what I think in Vietnam they were often saying, let's just declare victory and get out of there. And that's what he's done in Syria. Said, well, we've pretty much completed our effort here. We're pulling out. And I think he will, and I think it's a very good thing. Now, some people are going to suffer. There's no question about that. And, of course, the press will play up all these situations where people will get slaughtered. But I'm not certain we could do that much to stop it. So that leaves basically Assad in there. It leaves the Russians, it leaves the Turks, leaves the Kurds running around out there, and the Iranians, and the Saudis, and the Israelis. So there's plenty of people left over there that can pound on each other without us being in the middle of it. So I think what Trump is saying is he'd like to get us out of the Middle East pretty much entirely if he could. And I think that has some ramifications, one of which is we've told the Saudis we want that war in Yemen brought under control. And, of course, they're talking, the forces backed by the Saudis are talking to the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and they have come up with ceasefire in some areas, or truce, I guess. So maybe they can move that into a much more permanent situation. I don't know, but we've told the Saudis we want them to act in that respect, and by pulling out of Syria, we made it pretty plain that we're not afraid to pull out support and pull out our troops. And plus you got the Senate jumping up and down, really quite unwilling to provide any more military assistance to Saudi Arabia. So I think they better be paying attention there to try to settle that situation.
This decision was praised by Senator Rand Paul. Does this help a future Rand Paul run for the White House when Trump's
No, I don't. But I think the other point here is Afghanistan. And I think we're letting the Taliban know in Afghanistan that, again, we're not afraid to pull our troops out there if they can give us some kind of assurance of some kind of agreement. And we, as perhaps our audience knows, right now we are negotiating with the Taliban, I think in Abu Dhabi. They've sent representatives. We have State Department people there. And basically we're trying to negotiate some sort of deal with Taliban. Now, one of the problems is the Afghan government would like to be included in this agreement, and the Taliban has made it clear they're not going to talk to them at all. So I don't know. We're liable to leave the Afghanis flying in the air there. But on the other hand, I think the important thing is to get out of there. And as a result of these negotiations, I don't think Trump cares too much one way or another what kind of agreement it gets, as long as he has something that looks like an agreement. So I think the odds are pretty fair that we'll be pulling out of Afghanistan. Now, of course, that's a NATO effort, and but I don't think our allies, our NATO allies, are going to be too upset if we pull out as well. So just as long as we get some kind of cover there to give us some image of stability. And I feel very badly about that. I think the Taliban are very nasty people, and they do everything they can to destroy any kind of heritage or monuments or things of that sort. They're really
Antifa-like.
they're kind of what?
Antifa-like.
Yeah, they're just not. But on the other hand, we could spend a long, long time in there and not accomplish anything. So we're better off just pulling out, I think. And I think we will.
Okay, what are the ramifications of this as far as what's left of the neocons go? And the liberals are very critical of this move on Trump's part, but that's knee-jerk. Whatever he does, they're against it. What about the neocons that are left out there?
Well, certainly Bolton, I think, who is, head of national security now, would be one of the leading neocons. But he's either being overridden or he's finally decided that, this is a losing game. So they've kind of moved off to the side. I think Trump's ability to pound on countries like China and some of these other countries, and the Russians as well, has given him confidence that, American power is still feared, if not respected, in the world. So that whole operation, I think, is moving to the edge. And this past week, I think the Weekly Standard has folded.
Yeah.
And you had a bunch of neocons there. And David Brooks has a piece in the New York Times this week where he says it's a result of the Weekly Standard being bought by some multimillionaires who are trying to push their views out on the public, and the whole thing's just kind of falling apart. So in any case, that would,
Can I say something about the Weekly Standard?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, Tucker Carlson in his new book, and I was reading this out of one of the Boston newspapers, I think it was the Globe. They quoted Tucker Carlson in his new book as saying that years ago when Tucker Carlson was working for Bill Kristol,
right, that
Kristol came in and said, I want you to write a negative article about Pat Buchanan, and Tucker Carlson said he went along with it begrudgingly, not really wanting to, but he said Buchanan had a great line about the neocons at that time. He said, Pat Buchanan said, these people are not conservatives. All they care about is empire, empire, empire.
Very strong supporters of Israel, and they certainly can't fault Trump much there at this point, I would think. Although, William Kristol's point was anybody but Trump or never Trump or something like that.
Trump's critics can never be pleased.
Yeah, well, Kristol will have to wander off now and find something else. He'll find something. He'll hook on to some policy group or study group or something of that sort and end up on Fox News and some of the other programs. But Tucker Carlson in his book, what is the title of it now? It's Ship of Fools, I think.
Yes.
Where he points out that the leadership in the conservatives and the liberal area in Washington, D.C. have gotten so far out of touch with the general American public that they really don't represent much in that respect at all anymore. And, it's probably a pretty good book. He goes after McConnell and several other leading Republicans, as well as, of course, some of the Democrats.
Dr. Bob, if we could get back to Syria for just a little bit.
Surely.
Okay. Reading some posts from Rand Paul's father, Ron Paul's Twitter page. U.S. troops will ultimately come home from everywhere the government is broke, Ron Paul says. Also, he says, Warmongers trying to hoodwink the American public on Syria. Here's another one. Trump to end unconstitutional Syria war. Washington heads are exploding.
Yeah, well,
That's
what
what
do
he
you want
says.
me to do about that? I mean, the warmongers, I don't know what that's all about. No, I do think there's going to be, people are going to get slaughtered over there. And you can know the liberal press is going to play that up. And I guess that it's a relevant point. But so much for the Arab Spring. And we've got to, in that sense, we can't be out trying to protect every group that's being mishandled in the world. We just can't do it. And so the first point is to maintain our strength and our position in the world.
Talking to Dr. Robert Heineman. When we come back from our quick break, we're going to talk about state news. Stay with us.
Are you looking for an obstetrician or gynecologist? Make an appointment today with Dr. Anna Herring, OBGYN. Dr. Herring sees women of all ages in Wellsville at 127 North Main Street and in Hornell at 430 Canastillo Street. To make an appointment in Wellsville, call 585-596-4047. To see Dr. Herring in Hornell, please call 607-324-0604.
Checking in now with the meteorologist Rob Carolyn. Rob, can you see as far as ahead as Christmas, as far as the weather goes?
I can.
And would you mind telling us what it's going to be?
I wouldn't.
I sense some obstructionism here.
I just figured I'd give you a hard time this morning, Brian. It is a Friday. We're headed into the weekend. Right now, doesn't look like we'd be dealing with a white Christmas, but it is a possibility, believe it or not. Unusually mild weather on this first day of winter, astronomically speaking. A winter solstice takes place later this afternoon, Brian, at 5:32. What that means is the sun will be 23.5 degrees south of the equator at that point. It's the furthest south it gets from the northern hemisphere. Good news is, from this point on, the days start getting longer, and it's going to get colder too. A lot of cloudiness out there today. We're going to be breezy. There'll be some periods of rain. Temperatures between 55 and 60 later this afternoon. That is well above normal for this time of year. Sunrise this morning was at 7:36. Sunset tonight at 4:41 gives us about 9 hours and 4 minutes of daylight, shortest day of the year. Now, tonight we'll look for rain to switch over to some wet snow overnight. We're going to be getting colder. It'll be breezy, 30 to 35. There could be a coating on the ground by this time tomorrow. For tomorrow, cloudy, breezy, a lot colder, high of 35. Scattered flurries and snow showers are possible. Be careful if you're headed out tomorrow, especially early on in the day. There may be some slick spots, but mostly cloudy weather through tomorrow night, 25 to 30. Sunday, clouds, a few flurries or snow showers, 35 to 40. Brian will remain in the 30s through Monday and into Christmas Day with the chance for some widely scattered flurries or snow showers.
Back with Dr. Robert A. Heineman, political science professor emeritus, Alfred University.
Yes.
Assembly Speaker, Democrat Carl Heastie and Andrew Cuomo went at it this week. Heastie came out and said that Cuomo lied.
Yes.
And he said he lied over the proposed, I shouldn't say, I always throw in proposed. Heastie said Cuomo lied over talks that the three big legislative leaders, Cuomo, State Senate Leader Flanagan, State Senate Leader
Heastie,
Andrea Stewart Cousins, and Carl Heastie had with Cuomo. Heastie says that Cuomo threw out this thing that they had in the public discussion that everybody was okay with the state lawmakers getting a pay raise and making a full-time job out of the state legislature positions. And Heastie said that's not true. Heastie also says that Cuomo used a government panel to give the state lawmakers pay raises, and Heastie says that's illegal.
Yeah, well, he may have a point there, that's for sure. Now, I frankly don't care much about the specifics of the issue. What I think is kind of interesting is watch the Democrats taking pot shots at each other now. And I think you're going to see that to be increasingly the case. So the idea that there's a monolithic Democrat Party there in this state, I don't think so. And you've always had competition between the legislative branches and the executive, just like you have competition between the governor of New York and the mayor of New York City. They never get along, except when they want to get an Amazon store in New York City or something like that. So I think you're going to see this increasingly happen, and some of these proposals that come up, I think Cuomo's going to dig his heels in, and it's just going to be interesting, and I'm just hoping Cuomo's got the good sense to dig his heels in on a number of these things. By the by, I just thought it might be interesting to touch on that Arizona situation there, Brian, if you don't mind.
No, I want to come back and talk about Cuomo and Spitzer in a minute, but go ahead and talk about Arizona.
Well, McSally has been appointed to fill the remainder of McCain's seat out there. And what's interesting about that is that she was in a very tight race with, Sienna? What was that the woman's name? The Democrat.
Yes.
Who beat her for Flake's position. And it was very close, several hundred votes. And she, of course, could have taken it to a recount and pushed it, but she did not. She just abruptly said, well, that's it. My opponent has won. And I think, basically, she was aware at that time that she'd been promised the appointment to McCain's empty seat. And so she just backed off, and now she's got the seat. And that's worked out pretty well for her, I think. So that I think was all in the sort of in the making there at that time, and I think it works out pretty well for everybody.
So that's why McSally didn't challenge, because there was a lot of talk about stolen election out there.
Right. Yeah. So no, she was. I think she felt that, this was still being fought over. She would. The publicity would be negative, and much better off just stepping back and stepping forward. So I think that takes care of that. And I'm thinking that has something to do with New York State as well, but I must say, Brian, it's slipped my mind. Maybe it'll come to me.
You had some thoughts about Tracy Metrano, who was Reed's former opponent there?
Yes, well, I think it's relevant there that she has decided that she's going to continue her effort to run as an opponent to Congressman Reed, and it's come to my attention in the last few days that she's been calling all the Democrat chairmen around the state, asking for their support at this point. So Reed hasn't even been sworn in yet, and she's out there trying to get Democrat chairmen to endorse her for 2020. Which I think is not rubbing some of these people quite the right way. But clearly she's trying to put together an organization and is going to try to continue, I guess, to get her name in the press, etc. I don't know how much good that's going to do her, but she's...
I talked to one liberal reporter who said he thought it was a bad idea.
Well, I just wonder about it, too, but... in our case, in Arizona, McSally had the sense to back off and look toward the next one coming up, and I guess Metrano's not backing off and is working hard as she can to push herself forward for the next congressional race. So we'll just have to watch that. So what do you want to talk about here?
Back to Spitzer and Cuomo.
Spitzer and Cuomo?
Yeah, Spitzer said that that Governor Cuomo has an Orwellian relationship with facts. Governor Cuomo had been criticizing former Governor Eliot Spitzer about some school funding. And Cuomo fired back, saying that Eliot Spitzer is disgraced. So you're right on these guys fighting.
Yeah,
the way they do in downstate.
Well, he's certainly right. Spitzer is disgraced. I don't think there's any question about that. And why anybody be paying any attention, frankly, to what Spitzer has to say at this point, I don't know. But at this point, I think you're watching Cuomo try to get some of these progressive proposals through. The marijuana thing, he's obviously very hot on that. And some election reform, some of those things. I think the single-payer health insurance, frankly, although there will be people in the state Senate and probably in the Assembly that are going to push some sort of single-payer system, I don't think Cuomo's at all favorable to that, and for good reason. It would be a pretty horrendous approach to health care in New York State. So we'll just have to watch how that plays out.
Kind of a minor point in politics, but somewhat interesting all the same. President Donald Trump is no longer following Ann Coulter's Twitter page.
Oh.
She declared she would no longer support Trump's re-election if no progress is made on the wall. Real Donald Trump is no longer following Ann Coulter. What are your thoughts on Coulter?
I don't like her at all. I think she's one of these people who's very clever, single line little shots of one sort or another. And I think she's just kind of an image maker. Although she obviously is making some, I think it was some money off her books and things of that sort, and Fox News has her on, or somebody on Fox has her occasionally. But really, I don't think she adds much to the conservative movement at all. And in fact, I think she's kind of an embarrassment. But, a quick quip here and there, I guess that's kind of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, she's good at the one-liners, but yeah, sometimes she says things, and I think on her point on illegal immigration, sure, I have all kinds of criticisms of it, but just to to put together a book of a bunch of Hispanic immigrants' crime statistics, I don't know, something about that doesn't sit right with me.
No, I think we picked on the Hispanics enough here.
Yeah, there's a lot more to them. They're good, hardworking
quite a
people.
Bit, absolutely, yes. So
we've been talking to Dr. Robert A. Heineman, Alfred University professor of political science emeritus. Dr. Bob, I want to thank you so much for coming in, which you're so good to do on these holiday situations.
Well, we try to make room for you in my crowded organizer, Brian, but you've got a place in my organizer and a place in my heart, young man.
Oh, well, thank you, Dr. Bob.